Yes, and welcome to our finale of Monster Hunter Worlds. Oh my god. The journey is over, clocking in at 200 hours as a well-deserved break, I think, going into Monster Hunter Wilds, which I can't wait for now. Like, it's so joyous to find another franchise that's like, this is great, this is just wonderful. My overall rating for the game, if you're looking for that, is like S+ tier. Absolutely phenomenal. Loved it. Amazing. Let's talk about the last day, because I know many of you were... before we get into Fatalis, I just want to say, at the jump off, I'm going to explain why I did not enjoy this fight. And I haven't killed it as of now, and I'm probably not going to. Maybe I will, just for the sake of ticking the checkbox. I actually went to kill it last night and got it to skull. It wasn't a hard fight. Let's put it that way. It wasn't a difficult fight. But I didn't really enjoy it. I was actually very bored. And so I hate streaming bored. People can tell. The audience can tell. It's just not digging it. And I know that's a shame because many people were really excited for it. I think it got summed up pretty well by some of our viewers. It's like it was a bit overhyped as to what it is. I will say it is phenomenally cinematic. It is very, very cinematic. But the fight itself... I mean, if I'm comparing it to Alatreon, which Alatreon is just such a wonderful, joyous experience in my life that I will carry with me to the grave. It's not that. Fatalis was not that. The setup and stuff, wonderful. The actual execution wasn't for me. Well, let me explain why, so you don't feel like, oh, you're just hating on it. And I also want to be absolutely clear, it does not leave a sour taste in my mouth about the game as a whole. Some people are very worried about that. I was like, oh, did you not like the game? I was like, yes, I had 200 hours. Fatalis was like 6 of those hours. I loved it. I absolutely adored it. I thought it was fantastic. So what was wrong with Fatalis? It turns out, I think for like the first time ever, or the first time that it became apparent, I probably did have this advantage earlier on, I just didn't realize it, is that my weapon was actually kind of idyllic for this fight. And when that dawned on me, it really crushed the fight for me, to the point that I was debating, like, should I just go and get another weapon so I can actually have a real fight with this thing? But after so long, and being bored already of the actual fight in itself, I was like, I just can't be bothered, I'll be honest. I'm just not into it. I'm not into it. First of all, we are obviously way, way underpowered compared to what it was designed for, but that's fine. We were clearly overcoming it, and we could have clearly killed it. We actually nearly killed it in our first day. Like I said, I had one go last night because I had half an hour in between doing homework with my kids, and nearly killed it again. So it's a case of like just getting in and getting it done. It would probably take us like a half day, I guess, to actually finish this off. But we're going to move on to Factorio. My team has chosen Factorio as a fun thing to jump into. All right, so what didn't I like? The setup itself, I think most people would probably turn to that. The setup itself, I didn't mind. There's a thing that happens when we're doing blind runs in any game that you've been following us on, where very regularly I'll stumble on some kind of advanced mechanic while missing some very basic mechanic, right? I spent like 12 or 14 days not noticing the enrage timer. Yeah, I did figure out you could reset the stun animation on the drool by jumping up there. And it's the same kind of happened here, because it wanted you to use the cannons. I only turned to the cannons. I actually started prog without doing the cannons, because I was like, I really dislike them from the Zora Madrigos situation. That was the only other time I'd really used cannons. I didn't want to mess with those. But I noticed a 10-minute timer. I was like, wow, this fight is really short. And I was like, oh, it's a DPS race. And then the overall design of the fight became apparent, which is this fight is incredibly brutal in terms of its damage output, and it's a DPS race. And it's designed to try and counter pretty much everything you would want to do, typically, to kill a boss. And this makes sense. In fact, this isn't a brag, it's just I've spent a lot of time with AAA game developers over dinner, over drinks, chit-chatting about this kind of thing. And a problem that can occur in a game that's like got power progression is that you can give the players just way, way too much power. It's as simple as that. But you kind of need to do that to give people carrots to chase. You need to give them the best armor. You need to give them overwhelmingly good armor. You need to give them increasing things to grind. Like, you've captured your weapon, but now you can unlock it and you can grind it more and you can add more abilities to it and you can customize your abilities and things like that. So you can now get like idyllic sets for how you like to play. And that makes you way, 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 way strong. Like, super strong. But then they need to come up with something that's going to be a challenge for you. How do you do that with players that can heal themselves continuously by DPSing, right? With reducing their downtime to almost zero. How do we do that? And the way you can do that is the simple way, is you just make the thing hit so hard that if you get hit twice, you die regardless of what you're wearing. Pretty much. And that's kind of what they had to do with Fatalis. I haven't got many complaints about this fight other than two, really. One is move variety. It's very limited. I was actually kind of shocked at how repetitive this fight felt just like 3 hours in, compared to 4 days with Alatreon, which has a set move set, but it does alter a lot. It'll alter between adding in the frost, adding in the fire, adding in its dragon. So it's constantly like cycling through almost different bosses, so to speak. Fatalis doesn't do that. Fatalis is like, I didn't really notice a difference between Enraged. It's like slightly faster, but it's Enraged. It's like just the same things over and over again. The only new move I saw, I think, was very late into the fight, and it only ever happened once, is he could push me into his chest. And I saw it once, and I was like, oh, that's new. And that was like 5 hours in. It's like, oh, that's new. And he did a 360 Flame Breath, which if you're in melee, you just kind of dodge anyway. So other than that, the fight was ultra repetitive, cycling between three things. He's either laying down and he's not enraged. He's either laying down and he's enraged, or he's stood up and he's enraged. So I got kind of tired of it. Every ability is designed to get you. So if you're like, oh, you want to go and work on this? Well, I've got like a side fire breath that'll blow you up there. If you're going in front, I've got a frontal fire breath and another fire breath and another one. And if you go this way, the actual most egregious... so the moveset variety was one complaint. I did find myself getting bored of just the same attacks over and over and then looking for the ones that you can punish on. The other complaint I have is I think they really overdid it on the physical damage of the rear end. I get it. He's huge, right? I understand why they did it, because he's absolutely enormous, and the temptation is to work on the back legs and the giant chunky tail. So how did they counter that? If the tail breathes, like if that hitbox comes anywhere near you, you lose 90% of your health, and it can just move like a foot, like a breeze, and you're just like, boom, you're just down, and you're like, okay, well, I have to heal. So I have to max potion. There's nothing else I can do here. The same with the back leg. If you're slightly near its hitbox and it moves forward, you just get clobbered into the floor. I was like, okay. It actually relaxed on the wombo combos compared to Alatreon. The worst one I saw was the belly flop that it does, which if you get anywhere near, I'm not sure how wide that hitbox is, but iframing it I found very difficult, and it just knocks you to the floor and it can kill you outside of that. And it also had another one where if you got stunned by anything, essentially, it could fireball you. It very rarely happened, to be clear, but it could fireball you before your roll animation was even complete. So you dodged the first one, but as your character was standing up to roll again, it would already have killed you. So I had a couple of those, but nothing egregious. No big complaints there. Just I think they went overboard with the physical damage on the back end. But I get why they did it. I just thought it was like, this is a bit silly. It's a bit needless to like just take 90% of your health because he walked near you. Other than that, I figured some things out pretty quickly. Because it was a DPS race, and I had been recommended a gear set by Rurikan that had the use of siege weapons. So I was like, we should figure this out. But going in, there's 3 cannons in the room, but you start with 2. The room expands later. I never figured out how to use the 3rd cannon. But the 2 cannons are just on the platform. So I was like, I wonder how I use these. Because once Fatalis sees you, he knocks that thing down. It's made of wood. Clever place to put your cannons, by the way. And then I was like, I wonder if I could smoke bomb over here. That only works while you're in the smoke bomb, and then he finds you and comes and kills you again. So then it was like, okay, I kind of need to do something here. Which then I dawned on the ghillie mantle, the stealth mantle. I tried that and put it on in the arena, and he knew where I was anyway, so as soon as I did anything, he found me. But then if you put it on before you go down, it works. And what you could do is you can set it up so that you can shoot him, and it does good damage. I think in total, if you hit both cannons, it's like 4,500 damage, which is a great start to the fight, and knocks him over for a huge opening. So it just gives you thousands of damage to just kick off this DPS race. And he always does the same pattern, which was great for setting this up. So it didn't actually get that tedious to set this up because the cap does help you put the cannons in, position him in a way because he always charges this way, so you can shoot him that way, and then he falls over, and then you can go into this sort of routine where you do massive damage. So that opening wasn't too bad because the fight is pretty fast paced after that. It's a very, very fast fight. It's hugely fast. His attacks are fast and things like that. So I figured that out and got going on with it. There were things that I could figure out were going to happen. And in fact, it wasn't a secret. The handlers clearly point out, it's like, hey, go and hide behind this thing when he fire breaths. I was like, okay. And then the barricade. They're like, the barricade is now available. I'm like, so that's going to be the next fire breath because he melts the first place. And sure enough, when he goes for his next AoE, he says, right, go to behind the barricade. I'm like, all right. And then I was like, is this in rage? Because I have nowhere to hide for the next breath. And then he did his big thing. This is one of the things... I believe, if I was to talk to the devs, that they took the feedback from Alatreon and decided to modify it because people complained so heavily about how hard Alatreon was. I was looking for a long time for some gimmick to the fight because Alatreon's got several gimmicks that you need to overcome. So I was looking for those. And then it became apparent that the gimmick was, by the time we got deeper into the fight, like phase 3 or something like that, is that he now has blue flame. And then the handler's like, it's the horns. I was like, oh, we got to break the horns again. And I hadn't broken them at this point. I would guess, based on the damage I had done to the head and wall bangs and things, that they have like 10,000 HP, if not more. And he's not easy to hit the head, at least with the way I was playing. So that needs a lot of work. But the horns disable the blue flame. I was like, I get it. So I abandoned mission then, because I was like, okay, we've reached that mark like on Alatreon, where he's just going to melt us to the ground because he's now got blue flame. That was a mistake, and I guess this is because of the feedback of Alatreon. Him having blue flame made no difference to me whatsoever. At all, in any way, shape, or form. Because when I got back there, I was like, we've got to be close to breaking the head, because I'd really focused on damaging the head. So I was like, maybe I could survive a bit of this. And it went into his third AoE. And it just didn't do anything that was different than the original fire. I didn't have heavy fire resist. I had 9 fire resist. I did have Divine Blessing up, but this was consistent. Very consistent. Because I got 4 breaths, 4 AoEs total, and then a 5th later, and I was like, it just didn't hurt. You could just run through it. And I guess... if this would have been done before Alatreon, I imagine if you hadn't broke that horn, it would be an unsurvivable one-shot to be hit by this, like it is with his Escobar ability. But not here. You could just run through it and heal up, and then he lands again. And it was needless. And that was disappointing. I understand why they made that change, because people were probably pissed that the fight was over at Alatreon just because you didn't break the horn in time or whatever. So they just didn't do that. People were a little surprised. I think they might have been misremembering it, because a lot of people were like, no, you should be dying here. You should be dying. Or his fire is now incredible. Here's the thing. With my character, every ability the boss did hit me for 60 to 70, or sometimes 90% of my health. So something hitting for like 80 to 95% of my health didn't matter. It made no difference to me. It was like, yeah, this is no different than I've been dealing with from the start. And ultimately, what really killed it for me is I was like, you know what? All his attacks are very deadly, but because he's so big, I can kind of grip onto him a lot and just do ZSD, Bang Bang attack. And I towards the end of our prog day, I was like, I'm just going to try this out. So I put on Rocksteady and Temporal Mantle, which auto-dodge you if you're attached to something, or the Rocksteady means you won't get knocked off if it's... because a lot of his movement with his head hits you, but it doesn't do a lot of damage. I'm just going to try ZSD spam. I nearly killed it on that try, and it was so boring. I was like, bang, 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 bang. Okay, grip on again. Bang, 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 bang. Grip on again. Bang, 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 bang. And this led to a weird vibe in the chat as well, because they were like, they were like, you should stop using ZSD because it's making the fight too easy. And my take on this is this. You can't have it both ways, right? We're not doing... it's already challenging enough in the character we have. For days and days, like on Alatreon especially, people complain, you're not doing ZSD enough, okay? But this is how it works for me, and I'm not comfortable with some of these opportunities to do ZSDs. And on this fight, ZSD is extremely effective, so I'm going to use it because that's the most effective way of me fighting it. Because it is, right? It's like, don't use the good weapon here. And people are complaining about that. Like, you should change weapon now to do something that makes the fight harder. I'm like, we can't have it both ways. Like, it's just one of the tools in my... like, at which point does this stop? It's like, well, you've got to stop using max potions because you're healing too quickly. You can't use any of the mantles because it's auto dodging some of the attacks. So you should be dodging. It's one of those that ends up in an old Souls-like challenge room. It's like, well, I've got to do it with a ladle now to increase the challenge. It's like, no, this is what we have. This is how this works, and it just so happens it's advantageous for me. And I agree, it's really boring. But at this stage of the game, with a fight I'm already pretty bored with because it just doesn't do anything. It does the same attacks, then it does a flame breath at a certain HP threshold, and then it does the same attacks again. I'm already bored of this fight. And I just kind of want it to be over. So adding more challenge so this fight is different is not really something I want to invest in. I'm just not interested in learning a brand new weapon right now. I'm done. It's fine. It's totally fine. I'm done. Alatreon will be my last boss, and it's one of the most epic boss fights I've ever done. It was fantastic. It was amazing. I just didn't like Fatalis. That's it. That's it. Wasn't a particularly hard challenge. Didn't really enjoy the movesets or anything like that. So I'm okay with it. I'm totally okay with it, is what I want to come out with. I don't want to complain about it too much because people love that fight. Great. That's awesome. I'm really, genuinely very happy for you. I mean, disliking it doesn't change that. Like, you have a great time with it. I prefer the other one. It's literally that simple. So that's going to be the end of Monster Hunter for us for now until Wilds launches. I haven't played the beta because I don't want to. I want to wait till it launches fully and get in there. I don't like progging a game I know we're going to play before it comes out. It's something I try and avoid. And we're moving on to Factorio, which I'm super excited by because it's a game that I've always wanted to play, but always worried that my building designs may cause mass hysteria, so to speak. But we'll be jumping into that as our break between Wilds. So I hope you stay tuned for it. It's been a pleasure doing Monster Hunter, and I can't wait for Wilds. All right? So I'll see you again. Bye, guys.